Most people can see there is a clear difference between these two photos of one horse's back. However, most don't know what the change actually is, what that means for function, and how this horse now has improved in muscle structure. It's easy to make assumptions when you're looking at specific areas within the horse, but what we need to do is look at what we actually know from these two photos, not make assumptions. Zooming in on specific areas of the body can really help you notice detail. However, you have to know what you're looking at in order to understand what's wrong and what's changed. Let's look at the before photo first of all. So the first thing we can notice is there is a significant curve from the top of the withers down towards the back and then back up again towards the croup. This curve is exaggerated, so that tells us this back finds it difficult to lift, which means that the muscle structure is not functioning correctly and potentially there is dysfunction within the spine itself. What we can also see is there is a slightly shadowed area just behind the back upper section of the shoulder blade. This tells us there is compression in the trapezius muscle, and also there is hollowing here, which means the trapezius, the muscle that brings the upper part of the shoulder blade back and lifts the thoracic rib cage up and stabilizes it, is not working optimally. What we can also see is there then is quite a sweep up to the top of the croup. This means that if we have the trapezius not functioning properly, then there has to be stabilization within the lumbar spine and over the top of the croup. When we then look at the after photograph, what we can see is there is less curve from the top of the withers down to the back and up towards the croup. Therefore, we have better function because we can see now that the muscles are actually working and have filled up in that area. When we then look at the area in the traps, so in the trapezius muscle behind the shoulder blade, this is more full. So that tells us, remember, the trapezius muscle pulls the shoulder blade back and lifts the thoracic up into the center of the horse. This is now switched on. So that area has now filled up. So that tells us that the horse is able to stabilize the rib cage more in the center of the chest and to lift the rib cage up. It also tells us that the shoulder blade is able to come further back because those muscles are now engaged and working. We can also see, because the traps have now switched on and the horse is able to lift the rib cage more up in the center of the chest, there is less stabilization in the lumbar and towards the top of the croup. Let's look at the comparison photo once again. Now remember, we don't know what the rest of the horse is doing. We are only focused on this section. So we cannot make any assumptions as to what's going on anywhere else. We can just read the muscles and the skeleton within the photo, nothing else. So, looking at the top photo again, we can see the obvious curve from the withers to the back to the croup. In the after photo, that is less curved. We can also notice the difference in the traps. In the top photo, there is a big hollow and some shadowing behind the top of the shoulder blade, which tells us this area isn't functioning very well. In the bottom photo, that now looks really filled up and there is less drop in the trapezius area behind that shoulder blade. So we cannot obviously see the back of the shoulder blade in the after photo. We can also see that the muscle flows much easier from the withers to the top of the croup in the bottom photo, whereas in the before photo we see that there is a big drop, then a pull up, because the muscles are having to compensate within the lumbar spine and the croup for the big drop behind the shoulder blade. So thinking about what do we actually know about the photos, that will tell us the difference between the two photos, what muscles have changed and what muscles have been able to be switched on, and how that has impacted what we can see. We need to think about playing the detective and focus on what we actually know so that we're not guessing. When we can see differences like this, then we can understand, okay, so if the traps are now switched on, the shoulder blade is now actually able to come and move further back. The horse looks generally more connected in the second photo. So we can actually then think about, okay, so the change has been the rib cage can now lift more up between the center of the shoulder blades, and the horse can actually have a better range of motion within the shoulder blade itself because it is moving forward and backward more. Due to that, the croup and the lumbar spine can stop stabilizing so much and have better function themselves. It's really important to be able to recognize these things in your horse, whether they are positive or negative, because then you can make informed training decisions. So from the top photo, for example, you would take the idea that this horse needs to actually lift more in the rib cage and actually balance itself a little bit better, so that it can open the shoulders and move the shoulder blades through a full range of motion. If that is done correctly, you then get the second photograph. If you'd like to learn more about how to read your horse's muscle development, posture, loading patterns, then Train Your Eye is for you. It starts on June the 5th and is a guided challenge that will help you do exactly what we just did in this video, so you can make informed decisions about your training and help your horse to better function, comfort and range of motion. See you there.